Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melior Via, and I am up here at Immortals Inc. with Mikey working the boards.
What is up, my friend?
I thought we'd talk about some RPGs tonight.
I look at John and I'm like, hey, why does that background look so familiar? What do you tell me?
I said, well, it could be because not that long ago, Carlos just recorded a podcast about the Age of Sigmar, right, for Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks exactly like
and that
Age of
is because
Sigmar.
This is the role-playing game that is based off of Age of Sigmar. Yeah, amazing when the art's consistent, huh?
Absolutely consistent. I saw the armor, the gold shining bronze battle armor. I was like, that's it.
Yeah, so that is the armor of a Stormcast Eternal. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Warhammer, right? So Warhammer is owned by Games Workshop, and they've been publishing Warhammer Fantasy since the 80s, and during that time, there's been the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay game that's gone through, I think, 4 editions now. First one was done by Games Workshop, and then Black Library, I think, did a partnership on the second one. The third one was Fantasy Flight, and the 4th edition was published recently by Cubicle 7. Cubicle 7 is the current company that owns the right to make role-playing games based on Warhammer Fantasy and also Warhammer 40,000. They're publishing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, like I mentioned, 4th edition. They've got Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory going for the 40k set. And then they also have published Soulbound, which is Warhammer Age of Sigmar Roleplay, is the real tiny print right up there at the top. It's a fantasy setting. It's kind of an evolution of where the Warhammer setting was at the end of a couple editions back. Basically, they had the Warhammer world, things collapsed, and Sigmar, who was one of the major gods there, left and kind of abandoned it to chaos while he built up his own forces. And when he came back, he found the world very changed, but he brought an army of his Stormcast Eternals with him, and they started cleaning up the place and chasing chaos out and reunifying different groups. And that's the game world that the miniatures game has been in now for, I think, 2 editions. And that is also that same setting where this role-playing game is set, Soulbound. I did mention that Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is still around in 4th edition. That uses the old Warhammer setting, and this one uses the newer one. 2 completely separate games, 2 completely different systems. They are in no way compatible. They just both happen to be published by the same publisher, and they both happen to have Warhammer in the name somewhere. But you do have to be careful when you're looking at stuff. There are support lines for both, but the one we're talking about tonight is Soulbound. The basic premise of this game, when you're talking about the Soulbound, is that your characters are all part of a group of epic heroes whose souls are connected in some way. They're really soul-bound. And because of that connection between them, that empowers them and increases their ability to perform these truly epic feats to try and cleanse the world of chaos.
So can they feel each other's pain if you get your arm chopped off, or no?
I think that may be an element at certain times and in certain situations. I don't think they're always quite that closely linked.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope not. That would kind of suck.
Yeah, it would. Because of the setting change and because of the role these characters are playing, this is a much more epic game than Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Characters in that game are kind of infamously not real strong when they start out. Maybe not at the level of Dungeon Crawl Classics that we were talking about a few episodes back, but definitely not at the same power level even as Dungeons and Dragons. These characters are quite a bit more powerful than that. These are movers and shakers of the world. In a game of Warhammer, these would be the heroic models on the table.
And how many are there?
In this core rulebook, there are, I think, around 23, 24 different archetypes.
So all these guys are linked by their souls, right? They're
well,
soulbound.
All the guys in the party, right?
Okay,
so when you're playing a game, you're going to have one character per player. So usually somewhere between 3 and 8 players at a table in addition to the game master. And all of those members of that party are linked. And they share a common pool of energy called soul fire. We'll come back to that, but that's kind of their special ability that links them together.
Sounds intense.
Well, kind of, yeah. I did mention that there's about 24 different archetypes that are described in this book, and those archetypes come from a range of different backgrounds. A lot of that is based on the species that you're playing. So you've got humans, you've got your Stormcast Eternals, which, like I said, are these powerful heroes of Sigmar. Then you've got elves, Dwarden, which are basically dwarves, and Sylvaneths, which are kind of tree men. And some of those have different backgrounds. So there's a couple of types of dwarves, a couple of types of elves that are detailed in this rule book. And then you've got these archetypes. And archetypes make putting together a character really quick. You just have 3 attributes, and there's only 24 skills in the game. The archetypes have those attributes pre-assigned, and then you've got some experience points and some choices to make to shuffle around, to customize the archetype to be the kind of character you want to play.
I feel like that's a hard choice with so many archetypes. Like, I know you only have 3 attributes, but I feel like it'd be a tough choice.
Well, the attributes are kind of be defined based on the archetypes, and the archetypes are all kind of lavishly illustrated, and they are entities that you've seen if you're familiar with the Age of Sigmar miniatures game. So, like the Battle Mage, just as an example, is a hero that you might use on the table when you're playing Age of Sigmar, and that's a character that you can play then in this game, and they could be part of a Soulbound. But they don't just have to be soul-bound to members of the same faction. So you could have a Sylvaneth hero who would be bound to that battle mage, in spite of the fact that they're both from very different backgrounds.
So how would it work if, say, you're in battle and you die?
That's going to be real bad for that soul-bound group.
Right.
But new members can be added to the soul-bound. So one of the things that will aid your party is if you find another member. Things obviously get worse when somebody dies, but things can become better as you gain new members into the bound. Another thing, I mentioned Soulfire, and Soulfire is kind of your point system for doing heroic actions. It can also be your save your butt points. So if somebody is going to die, you may be able to spend Soulfire to try and stop them from dying.
Oh, so it's like the currency in a way.
Exactly, yeah. Beautiful. There are no rules for chaos-oriented characters because, let's face it, chaos are very much the bad guys. I don't know if that might be something that's in a source book that's already out or in a source book that's coming. I'm not entirely familiar with all elements of the line. If that's something that speaks to you, you might want to, check out, look for that more detail, drop a line to Cubicle 7. It is a skill and talent-based system. It is a dice pool-based system, so you're going to roll a number of dice equal to your skill plus your attribute. Like I said, there's only 3 attributes. There's about 24 skills. They are always linked, so your dice pool for a particular one will pretty much be the same. And then there's 2 difficulty numbers, a difficulty and a coordination, or complexity rather, difficulty and complexity, that will determine what you need to do to succeed. You roll a number of dice. You're trying to get the number that's in the difficulty on that dice, so it'll be 1 to 6. And then you need a number of those dice equal to the complexity. That sounds complicated when you first hear it. In play, it actually goes pretty quick. And as I was looking through the book, there is a nice chart in the game mastering section that gives you a quick reference for how difficult are these different difficulty and complexity numbers put together based on the number of dice that people are going to be tossing in their pool. I mentioned Soulfire as the symbolic link between the heroes and also your way to fix your dice results. The converse to that is the Doom rating, and that's just how bad things are going to get based on things that have gone badly for your characters and how the world around reflects them, because they are Sigmar's agents to kind of revitalize the world, and so when things go badly for them, the world around them also goes badly.
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not real familiar with the setting, this is actually a great book to get you started into this era of Warhammer, because there is a solid chunk of background on the world setting as well. Probably around 50 pages of this 350-page book are devoted to that, and they give it from a lot of different perspectives. They talk about a lot of the different factions that are present in the world. In addition to that, there's a good GM section. I mentioned that chart. There's a lot of other great GM advice for theming things to try and really capture the feel you want for Age of Sigmar. And then there's fairly lavish bestiary that gives you a lot of different monsters and also NPCs for your player characters to encounter and do battle with as they try to help redeem the world. It's about 350 pages. It is full color and lavishly illustrated, and it's $60 here on the shelf at Immortals Inc. We also do have some additional support materials for it right on the shelf next to it.
Well said, John. Well said.
All right. Thanks, Mikey. And if you enjoyed this, throw us a like and consider subscribing.
Everything in the bio, or description, shall I say.